This week's topic is healthy conflict in relationships. With restrictions in our communities imposed, we're spending more time with others. No matter how good or healthy our relationships are, this creates an environment for conflict. Today we'll discuss tips to keep these conflicts healthy and constructive. These tips can be used in all relationships, from friendships to partners to other family members or other members of your household. It's first important to recognize, although one might not realize, conflicts are important to grow any relationship. We often think of conflicts as bad, but let's start thinking about them as good, or as opportunities to grow our relationships. The bottom line is without conflict, we're probably not growing. Let's go over some basic do's or don'ts that you find yourself. Let's go over some basic do's or don'ts if you find yourself in conflict. Let's start with the don'ts. Don't name call. Don't swear. Don't yell. Don't use absolutes, such as starting sentences with you always or you never. Don't interrupt. Don't eye roll or make other invalidating body language or statements. Don't say something you'll regret. Don't be defensive. It's okay to be wrong. Don't withhold love. And stay off your phone. Don't avoid, shut down, or leave. If you need time to lower emotion, communicate that to the other person and give them a time when you can revisit the conflict, sooner than later. Don't bring up irrelevant things from the past. Don't wait until you're already in an argument to bring up things that are bothering you, and don't reroute a current conflict into another one. Stay on topic. And don't have a conflict while impaired with alcohol or drugs. Does anyone do these things? I know I sometimes do, and that's okay. The important thing is to be aware and try and change as you develop these conflict skills. Here's some do's. Take the time to lower emotion. Keep eye contact. Show that you're listening. Validate. Let the other person know they are heard by summarizing their issue back to them. I can't stress this enough. Do not invalidate the other person's perception of the issue. The way they see the issue is important to them, and by making it seem like it's not important will cause them to not feel heard, and they probably won't continue sharing their feelings with you in the future. Realize the emotion trap. Know that your emotions will distort and misrepresent reality, so if you are in high emotion, get down first. Allow the other person to process, and it's okay if they're crying. Try to find your own fault in the situation. Be willing to negotiate, and also be willing to forgive, forget, and move on. Another important piece with dealing with conflict effectively is to develop your secondary thinking during conflict, which will be your guide to avoid becoming ruled by emotions. For example, try and recognize as soon as you're in a conflict and think, okay, I'm in a conflict, this is okay, and part of every relationship, and this is an opportunity to grow. Continue the internal dialogue to check whether you are being controlled by your emotions, which will make you far more likely to engage in some of those don'ts. A simple way to look at conflict in the moment is ask yourself, is this constructive or destructive? Most of those don'ts are probably a sign that the conflict has turned destructive. At that time, stop the conflict and regroup. Remember that you probably care a great deal about the person you're in conflict with and want a healthy relationship with them, so engaging in many of those don'ts will have long-term future negative consequences for the relationship, and it will lead to more difficulty and conflict in the future. Recognize that how you deal with conflict now will predict how you deal with conflict next time. So start developing healthy standards now. So some things to remember. Relationships are not easy, so don't expect them to be. And like other meaningful things in our life, they take work. Also recognize it's a high-stress time for many of us. We're all a little worried and therefore more likely to become emotional and find ourselves in conflict. A little extra compassion for others and ourselves will go a long way. And finally, don't be ashamed to ask for help with the way you deal with conflict. Very few of us were taught growing up how to effectively handle conflict, and many of us deal with conflict based on the way we observed it in our upbringing. Dealing with conflict effectively is a huge piece to our overall wellness, and there are many great resources available to start improving the way you deal with conflict today. Thank you for watching.